stage 5 of the business development audit process, Peter, is bid management.
Yeah.
Which I think there's always a risk, or it seems to be more of a risk in the construction built environment sector. The whole race to the bottom analogy, which I know you've got some quite strong feelings about. So
yes,
this stage is essentially all about that, right? Isn't it? To avoiding being in that race and actually being a bit more strategic, more structured in terms of how you approach this bid management, whether it's private sector, public sector. And is that sort of stuff you cover off at this stage?
Well, that's well described, Steve, and you're right. It rather depends what your sort of ratio and mix of work is between public and the private sector. So in the public sector, you've got very prescribed processes to go through in terms of procurement and the bid process itself. And once your bid goes in, that's it. Unless you're then called to a presentation to win the day, then it's all done in that process. In the private sector, there may be more dialogue with private sector clients who once your bid's gone in, may be wanting more information, may want a further dialogue to regularise bids, etc. So those issues. And I mean, I've got a client whose business model is to avoid the race to the bottom totally.
Okay.
And the way they've couched their business model is to identify clients who've got programs of work, multi-site operations, and who will be receptive to the value that's been created. And it's not just about the price.
Yeah.
Because the issue with the race to the bottom is that there's so many things out of your control that even if you put in a good quality proposition, I know people are probably smiling at this point thinking, yes, that happens to us. The cost element kind of wins the day.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to look really hard. Again, this goes back to your business model. If your business model is to avoid that process, then where do you go hunting for work? Where are those situations not so prevalent? Because you're then up against the national businesses who obviously are pitching against the SME businesses. So SMEs and nationals are always pitching against each other, and in some cases, in the bid side of things, the larger companies have more accreditations, more awards, more sort of things to put forward, and sometimes the SMEs get squeezed, even though they're more than capable of doing the work. So you've really got to look hard at that kind of bid management, because obviously it's an expensive exercise. And when I'm working with clients in this phase, I ask them, do they have a bid process for like a bid or no bid decision? What does the process look like? If you haven't got it, I can give them a process to work to. And in terms of picking their battles, I encourage them to really think hard about whether they've got a chance of winning this project. So there's a difference, for example, between a one-off bid for a project and a framework where there are various spaces available. So you might fancy your chances more of getting on a framework. You might fancy your chances of winning a one-off project, but you've really got to look at it hard and think, are we really going to be in the running here, both from a value and maybe a cost perspective. So that bid management phase is kind of crucial. And the other thing you're looking at is kind of what's happening in terms of your sort of bid capability. Have you got people capable of writing those bids? Does that need to go externally? Because that's obviously another cost, but you do need that skill. Someone needs to have it, whether it's internally or externally.